Because First Nation, on whose land we live, work and play. You have an agenda in front of you. Would somebody like to move adoption? Seconder? All in favor? Carried. We have the minutes from the September 25th meeting. Would somebody like to move adoption? Seconder? All in favor, or anything coming out of the minutes first? All in favor? Carried. We don't have bylaws and we don't have delegations. 6.1, permissive tax exemption bylaw 1263. Does somebody want to speak to this? Margaret? Oh, sorry, just went to sleep. Have to work on how long it is before it is. Okay.
So every year, the District of Andrew has to file a bylaw for permissive tax exemptions before October 31st. There's also a requirement to advertise the permissive tax exemptions and when the bylaw will be adopted 2 times before October 31st and before the meeting that the bylaw will be adopted at. So with this bylaw, it's the same as it was in the prior year. Back in August of 2022, Council had requested to prepare the bylaw that exempted properties this year, the same as it was in the previous year. Before that, they had considered a couple of different options and possibly changing the bylaw and wanted that brought forward. The 2 options remain the same, so I wasn't given any other options, so it was to exclude land from any of the properties that are granted exemption due to council deciding for them to have an exemption, so not statutory exemption, and churches that had class 6 property that were not considered part of the statutory exemption for the church properties. So if land was excluded from all of the properties, it would be approximately $11,700 that we would save in permissive tax exemption. So that's additional taxation. And if we excluded class 6 improvements from the 4 church properties that would be affected, we would gain $48,300. The total effect on these properties, though, because they would also then be subject to being taxed by other taxing authorities, if we were not exempting them, the total would be about $76,800 to those 4 properties. So the recommendation here is to have the permissive tax exemption bylaw stay the same as it was in the prior year, unless council chooses to make one of the adjustments, and to give it first, second, and third reading. I have also made a recommendation that the bylaw be for 3 years so that we're not revisiting this every year, as it is a pretty substantial bylaw to create every year and advertise if we're going to leave them the same. This would have the bylaw coming up at the next term election so that new council could review the bylaw at that time.
Okay, before we go to questions, I just want to check in. Does anybody have any questions about what class 6 is and why some of the churches have class 6? Do you want to cover that?
Yes. So normally churches have class 9 or class 8, and those classes are exempt as they're considered church property used for church purposes. When the churches have excessive property that BC assessment deems could be used for other uses because it's not right being used for the actual place of worship and parking and whatever for the church, they have classed it as class 6, saying that it could be rented out, it could be used for other purposes. So that portion of the church's property could be taxed should council choose, but council can choose to exempt the surrounding property of the churches, which has been what's been done in the past.
Any questions?
Thanks for the report. Just to look at this, and maybe Margaret, last year in August, quite a few of the people from the church and the signatories for the churches came to a meeting. At that time, we gave them, none of them had appealed their taxes or their assessment, their assessment. None of them had appealed their assessment. So we would delay what we were going to do, which was allow number 2 to go ahead. I think it's number 2 to go ahead, and that Vanderhoof would collect $48,000 in tax. We would allow that to happen, but we put that on hold because none of them had gone to appeal and do anything like that. Do you know if any of the churches went to appeal their assessment?
None of them went to appeal, and actually their land assessments increased this year overall for those 4 churches by about $363,500.
Councilor Lozay.
Okay, so, thank you, Margaret. So you're saying that there was an increase in assessment of the land only of over $360,000, is that?
So there was an increase in the land assessment values. So those properties only increased in assessment, but there was no appeals filed to decrease those or reclassify them from class 6 into exempt property. So there was no change except for the regular increase that BC assessment does on land and improvements.
Okay, so that's quite a huge increase though in value.
Some of them are very substantial properties. If you were to look at the Gospel Chapel Evangelical Free Church, they have over $2 million in land and buildings. So, and theirs increased about 110,000 overall.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Looking for a motion. So you move the recommendation, Councilor Martins? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.2, cardboard recycling services for small businesses. Are you going to speak to that, Marcus? Okay. Cool. Okay, just one. Why is that not coming on? It's Margaret's. It was. Do I just hit it again there, Marcus? It's not going green even. Oh. Yeah, still Margaret's. We'll go with that.
I think now it came on. It wasn't on. Here.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. So this is regarding cardboard recycling for small businesses. And so the request is to approve, but actually practically we had to bring the bin already at the site. And from last Friday, it is in operation. So it is a little bit of, before the bylaw approval, we had to do this one because of the time crunch and all this contract, because Connexus removed their services from October 1st. And that is the reason to move that one quickly. So bylaw will be coming to a council next meeting and then following meeting. So now in terms of financial implication, we found that approximately $20 per business average, if we charge, that will be covering our cost approximately. But it will not be actually consistent because some of the businesses generate more, some are less. So when they had the contract with Connexus, it was $11 per load. So it depends on your load, whether you are generating more or not. But our one is actually bigger bin. And so it will be, I think, cost effective in terms of overall management. And so we have to pay approximately $1,000, but again, depends on number of loads. So we are thinking that maybe approximately it will be $1,000, but during November, December, it may be higher than that cost. And if council approve this, and then not in addition to the bylaw, we'll be actually working on a permanent solution. And that's a permanent solution will be reviewing different options within the municipality. And I think this is the best option so far we found. However, if we have any other options available, we'll be reviewing those options too and bring forward a report to council in near future. Thank you.
Great. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, seconder?
Second.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Yeah, no, I've had a ton of positive feedback from businesses, so that's really good. 7.1, request for letter of support for Foundry in Vanderhoof. I was approached a week or 2 weeks ago, I think, by Carrier County Family Services. Ken and I met with them this morning along with the RCMP. Had a good discussion around it. There is going to be a new intake for 10 in the province opening up, but it'll close quite soon. So they would like to get a letter of support from us, just showing that we want to do that. For those of you that are a little bit newer, Foundry is youth mental health support. They're building one in Burns Lake right now, 10,000 square feet. It's a significant undertaking. Carrier County would, in my mind, be the best person to be operating in Vanderhoof. They're really deep and well supported now, so it makes a lot of sense. Councillor Young.
Yeah, they serve ages 12 to 24, so it's not just high school or elementary school age children. This is 12 to 24. Yeah, I think the other piece also, we went to UBCM a year ago, I think twice, if I remember correctly, but at least a year ago. By then, there was already 14 in the queue, and we didn't make that queue. And we wanted to find a way to build partnerships. And so for them to come to the mayor at this point is excellent, because this is something we've been looking at for a couple of years now anyway. So.
Yeah, thank you. Were they planning on building here in that 4,000 square foot facility in town, or would it be out at Sycuz, or do you know?
They were looking to a first facility in town. Their hope was to have a building, but I mean, we all know that there aren't many 10,000 square foot buildings around, so it probably will be a ground up solution. Councilor Van Dolle?
Yeah, same question I had.
Oh,
I just
okay.
want to know if there was, if considering building it in town here.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councilor Young.
I was just gonna say, and the location is very important too, to make sure there's walk-up access for young folks in the other piece. So those are good questions, because I know in Burns Lake, they ensured that it would be in an area that was safe enough. It wasn't by railroad tracks, a bunch of other things that came up. So that's all being taken in consideration as well, but it goes back to what the mayor said around what is available, and what might need to be purchased, or et cetera, et cetera. So there's a little bit of investigations that have to be done first.
Yeah, and we're going to have a follow-up meeting on the 1st at 11, right after the community transition meeting. Did you want to go again, Ernest?
Yeah. And with that also, I suppose, like you just mentioned, like Councilor Young just mentioned too, location would be very crucial as well. And maybe that could somehow be written in our letter of support, at least try to find something. If there's nothing available, if they're doing ground up, then might have more choices, but that could be part of the decision making on where it goes.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
And then they're definitely very concerned about that, because they know that the success is based on location too,
Yeah.
right? So if it's not in the right spot, it'll be a really waste of money in the long run, so.
So I guess we're looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Seconder? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Awesome, moving on, 8.1, building permit statistics. Any questions there? Yeah. Jeez. Okay. On that note, moving on to 8.2. Council priorities. We have that on the agenda every time just to remind us of what our vision is and where we're going. Correspondence 9.1. We have this letter to Minister Kang down at UBCM. There was a meeting of district municipalities. Councillor Lozay and Councillor Frankel attended along with myself. I would be in support of this letter, but I thought, being as we had time, it should come to council and just get your blessing. So, Councillor Frankel.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that you sign the letter, even though it's not well written. It's a lot of many of us, and anyway, but it's getting the point across that there's a group of district municipalities in the province that share some common ground, and that's the first time that that's happened. So that's a positive.
Seconder. Awesome. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Carried. Oh, that wasn't. It's on now.
I just want to echo that, the fact that we often talk about finding ways to see common ground with other people, especially here in the north on Highway 16, whenever we're facing certain challenges, and for them to get together like they did and you guys were able to meet, that was really good. We saw the same thing with some housing pieces down there. So anyway, it's just nice to see this move forward.
Yeah. No, it is. And just maybe I shouldn't add too much more, but I think to myself anyways, I think there were two groups there. There was somewhere a population line. I don't know if it was 7,000 or 9,000, but somewhere there's a line that would split those two groups, right? Yeah. Awesome. Well, with all that taken care of, I will declare us adjourned. Oh, councillor items. Right. That was part of council items. Thank you, Elaine. Okay, let's start with Councillor Martins.
Yeah, thanks. I really have nothing. I was approached by some people this last couple of weeks, more than once actually, and I don't know if it's the right thing to say now too, but somebody was asking about lighting for ball fields or football fields and that kind of stuff. And apparently there had been something planned a few years ago that I certainly know nothing about, and it was turned down, and wonder if it need to be brought up again. So I don't know if that rings a bell for anybody or if it's something that's even worth pursuing. That was all for me.
Yeah. Councillor Bulmer.
So the only thing I've done is I went on the Chamber Business Walk. You went as well. I went with Leslie and Kevin went with Shelley, and we went around to a number of businesses and got interesting input. One of the more interesting comments, they wanted to talk, by the way. We had set out a certain amount of businesses to get to. We didn't get to that many because they really wanted to talk. And the one business we went into said, this is the first time the District of Vanderhoof has ever walked through my door unless I'm in trouble. So I think it was a good thing that the chamber and the district were seen as being one and concerned about our businesses. And I found it very eye-opening. I enjoyed listening to the business people, and I know they enjoyed having a team come by from both the chamber and the district. I think it was very worthwhile, and we should keep doing it that way.
Okay, Councillor Van Dola.
Yeah, I attended the Work BC barbecue that they held a week or so ago, and quite a number of people showed up for the barbecue. One passed on council's appreciation to that group and the work that they do to find jobs for everybody in the, that are unemployed or looking for different employment opportunities. And part of our, helping with gain our, looking at a community in transition for other kind of jobs and stuff. And so it was really good to see that group, and the hamburgers were good.
Good. Awesome. Counselor Young.
Not a whole lot. I brought home a gift from UBCM that lasted about 7 or 8 days, so the gift of COVID. So, so I'll get back to my feet. We already touched on the one meeting we had, and I know there's a historical society meeting tomorrow. And I know the mayor and I had a chance to touch base with our CMP as well the other day too. That was a good meeting. So that was pretty quiet. Less coughing going on now, so that's excellent.
Counselor Lozey.
Uh.
I did, but then Ken's went back on for some reason.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So I also attended the barbecue and had an interesting conversation with Ash about some immigration, how we can perhaps folks who are looking for permanent residency can get extra points if council works perhaps on some grants that could get some of that untapped, I guess, workforce that are going to school. So it was an interesting conversation. I think it's certainly something worth following up with. I also talked to Anna Peasgood from NDIT. I just wanted to double check when the close of, they've adjusted their intake schedule for grants.
Yeah.
And she said the next January 31st is the next deadline for grant intakes. And so she advised that if we were at all interested to make sure we get in there, because Prince George is very aggressively going after some of their grants. And, I just wanted to clarify some questions that I had. I know that staff is working on
Mhm.
getting us ready to prepare for some of those grants. So, and that was it.
Okay. Counselor Frankel.
Just one thing, the Nechako Watershed Roundtable Core Committee met, struggling as always on the funding side, right? And it's a big disappointment when all the attention on watersheds goes to, Lower Mainland or Vancouver Island. So there's been a lot of good work over the 10 years that the Watershed Roundtable's been going, maybe longer. I might be off a year or two. But so our goal is to try and make sure that we lobby to get funding for the watershed. It's data, it's the right thing to be doing in the Nechako. There aren't many people that are looking at entire watersheds. I think with climate change, fires, floods, and all of the other disasters that we're seeing, that we're ahead of the game, and that getting people together and sharing issues is a good thing to get started on. So in saying that, there will be the annual general meeting in Vanderhoof on November 7th. When I get that invitation, it'll go out to everyone, or maybe everyone will get one. I encourage you all to at least be able to pop in, and it's down at the community center, the Elks Hall, and come by and be part of it. And I mean, we're trying to lobby government as much as we can, right? From Nathan Cullen to ministers involved, and so we're trying to get those meetings. So that's our next year, but really it'll be bare bones after this AGM. There won't be a lot of monthly meetings or every other months, because there's just not enough money. And this is an initiative probably 8 to 9 years ago that the district started putting their $2,000 to $5,000 in to help out, and it's falling on deaf ears with the province, and it shouldn't, because I think our watershed's being affected more so than any other watershed in British Columbia right now, especially with the fires that have killed most of the land base. So anyway, keep that in mind, but I'll make sure that everyone gets an invite, and if you can, just pop down. There's no fee, but you can pop in for a certain session. You'll see the agenda, and we'll go from there. So that's it.
Good. Well, keep up the good work there, Councillor Frankel. It's tough. And as you say, when you're trying to be there to talk about good, good issues to move forward, and it always ends up being about money. And it's been that way for a couple of years now, and it's tough. Okay. Had a community transition meeting last week. I think those are going well. Trying to keep the focus not just on mill workers, making sure that everybody else, I mean, we know the Chacolamba gave us an estimate of 5 to 1 jobs outside the mill compared to every job inside the mill, right? So trying to make sure that they stay in the focus too. As Councillor Young said, we had a really good meeting with the RCMP and the school district earlier in the week. Was really glad with how that came out. Accessibility Committee had its first meeting. That was good. Yeah, we've got a good group of people, so I'm really excited to see where that goes. And I already updated you about the Foundry, but so excited at that potential. That was something that we've really been wanting for a long time and desperately needing, and yeah, really excited there. Coming up, I know we have the invitation to go up to the Manor. I'm actually going to be away from town then, so if councillors can try and make it up there, they're really proud of that bus and they're really grateful of our contribution. I've been inside it once because they were so eager to have a look the day they received it, and goes out for its inaugural ride with residents tomorrow. So that's good news. Awesome. So now I think I've covered the agenda. I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.